Good morning, honorable members, colleagues from the Department of Human Settlements and other departments who may be with us as they would be introduced later on. We are officially starting our meeting. We've just had a briefing for members of the legislature only. And now we are commencing with this meeting, including of all stakeholders that are relevant to the work that we are about today. They are all welcome. Would then like to note if there are any apologies. I do have one apology from the head of department, but I will allow Ngolosi to register officially any apologies that may be coming from their side as a department. And then I'll give you as well, Babu Mdluli, to register officially the apologies on behalf of members of the portfolio committee.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. In addition to the issue apology for HOD Mbili, it's the apology for other ExCom members of the department that ordinarily participate in the portfolio committee. Our CFO, Ms. Shimala Pillay, our Chief Director for Forward Planning, Mr. Lindane Koza, and our Chief Director for a Sustainable Development, Mr. Thokozani Makakula, and lastly, our Chief Director for Corporate Services, Ms. Anderson. All of them are at the strategic planning session of the department in the Drakensberg. Thank you.
Thanks, Ngolos. I will then give Babu Mdluli to register any apologies from members and their side.
Thank you, Chair. In addition to Honorable Gwanyana, there's also Honorable Mabaso, whose apology we just received. He had an emergency that required of him to go home. So it is Honorable Gwanyana. Honorable Masigo is still coming, is a bit delayed as indicated earlier. So those are the three, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. The agenda is before us. I'll check for adoption of the agenda. I'll check from the honorable members for the adoption of the agenda.
Morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues, and to the department. I'm for the adoption of the agenda.
Chair and honorable members and official, I second the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you. For record purposes, it has been moved by the Honorable Legislature and seconded by the Honorable Mkize. Colleagues, just to give a brief highlight on the purpose of this meeting, as part of our legislature oversight responsibilities, we do have a mandate of playing an oversight insofar as the work of the department is concerned, particularly human settlements, on the various programs from program 1, 2, 3, and 4, and give our insight as a legislature portfolio committee. With respect to the work that we're about today, we will be receiving reports insofar as a couple of projects are concerned. We will have an opportunity to discuss with the honorable members and the stakeholders present. And then thereafter, we'll be going for the site visits. I don't think that will be very long in the meeting because the main task really, it's essentially to go out to the sites and make the physical, observations of the assets that we are talking about. So at this point, I'll then move to the fifth item, which is the presentation on the two projects. Thereafter, we'll be taking notes. But before we proceed with that, I think one item that we did not officially put on the agenda, it's really the introductions, as in the observations, who is in the meeting, so that we can understand which department is present and which is not. There were departments that were invited for the purposes of the holistic view of everything that we are going to be doing today. So I'll just quickly pass the mic, if we can, colleagues on my right, if we can just quickly introduce ourselves.
Morning, honorable members and Chair. Again, I'm Tulani Pengu, KZN Department of Human Settlements. Maybe just for the record to say that we have KZN Human Settlements, eThekwini Metro, and the Housing Development Agency, but they will be introducing themselves.
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, Chair. My name is Murchies Passage, Regional Manager, responsible for eThekwini.
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, Chair. My name is Winston Oakes. I'm a Deputy Director in the Coastal Region, Southern Area, eThekwini.
Morning, Chairperson and honorable members. My name is Velapi Komere from eThekwini Municipality. Maybe let me take this opportunity as well to apologize for our HOD Ubabu Lawrence Pato, as well as Dr. Kunene. The meeting, they are currently in a dry run for Illovo that is taking place next week. So this meeting actually coincided with the dry run. Okay, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mpume Mngadi from Human Settlements, Manager Projects. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Ayanda Lushaba from HDA. I would also like to apologize for our acting provincial manager, Mpho Mutomi, and Noma Kanyile. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I'm Nomfundo Zikali from HDA.
Morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members, and colleagues. My name is Sibong Lesibisi, and I am a coordinator from KZN Legislature.
Ngibingelele, Chair, nawo wonke amalungu esinawo. Igama lami nguThabiso ngwakwamahayekhe Isibongo, ngibuya Legislature. Ngiyaxolisa ngokuba late, Chair.
Chair and honorable members and the department and the official, igama lami nguNtuthuko Mkhize, member yaleli committee.
Morning, everyone. My name is Leona Goko. I'm a member of the KZN Legislature and a member of this committee. Thank you.
Good morning again. My name is Hannah Legit, and I'm a member of the Human Settlements Portfolio Committee. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I'm Bali Dube from Human Settlements.
Morning, everyone. Siyabonga Skwebela, Human Settlements Communications.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tshwanelo Sekoloko from Ground Up.
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members as well as colleagues. My name is Linda Brown, the researcher for the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlements. Thank you.
Morning, Chairperson, honorable members and colleagues. I am Monica Wilson, the legal advisor to the committee.
Morning, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, esteemed colleagues. My name is Boyani Mdluli, the cluster manager for the committees.
Morning, Chairperson and colleagues and honorable members. My name is Wanda Hlongwa, Legislature support staff. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. My name is Boniso Nkosi, Legislature support staff. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Nestor. I'm not sure. Before we move on, we had invited Public Works. If I can get from the Legislature support and cluster manager, if we have received any apology from the Department of Public Works.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. No, we have not received any apology as yet. Still hoping that it'll be present, but there's no apology, formal apology as things stand at the moment. Thank
you. Okay. That's a bit disturbing. I'm sure, Honorable Kokul, we can use our network to contact MEC Mayor just to indicate we're in a portfolio committee and people from his department are not coming to our meeting. I'm certain they should be here. I mean, we will struggle mainly with that Montclair project to analyze it correctly in their absence, because they are a major stakeholder. You'll recall that they're involved in the processes of the approvals and the plans and the refurbishment. If we don't have their perspective, we might just be missing critical information. I'm just taking my chances there, Honorable Lijet and Gokul, to try and see if we can't use our influence constructively in that regard, but hoping that they might join us. Can I then give the department or whosoever is responsible for the presentation on the two projects? We'll start with the Illovo flood victims housing project. Subsequent to that, we'll engage on the Montclair Lodge, and the honorable members will be noting their questions, and then we'll have one discussion, and then that will bring us towards the closure of this meeting. Thank you, colleagues, for joining us.
Oh, it's fine now. Thank you. I'm not sure if the presentation will be flighted. Chair and honorable members, I'll deal with both presentations, and as I said, members that are with me here, mainly from our team in human settlements, led by our regional director, Mr. Shange, and his deputy, Mr. Oaks, and then our eThekwini colleagues, because they also come in, and then HDA also on the matter of Montclair Lodge. I'm starting with the OSS. I see that Montclair is on screen, but that 5.1 is the Illovo OSS 37. If you may please switch on to that one. Thank you. Honorable members, this project was conceived in response to the 2022 flood victims, and we had sites that were owned by the department, which we normally call them infills, when the township of Illovo was built, that were available. And we allocate them to OSS, and then at this time, we then also made them available for the delivery of for flood victims. Then, as you can see here, the whole project is 9.2 million, where right now the expenditure is at 4.2 million. Started in January in 2023, concluding in January 2027. But at the bottom, you will notice that at least 25 houses have been completed. Then when you get there, you will then see the status of occupation. On the next page, it's the outline of company that is involved, company that was procured to help us on this project It's Mabone Consulting CC, and then they were supported by various entities, structural engineers, geotech engineers, and the land surveyor, as stated on slide 2. I'm on slide 2 to a person that is controlling the presentation. Then on slide 4, honorable members, it's the quick background. As you will remember, we had floods in April 2022. You can move to the next slide. In April 2022, and we then obtained the approval in August that same year that some of the sites in Illovo must be made available for the housing of flood victims. At that time, those flood victims had not moved to the TEAs. They were still staying in community halls. Then there was a request for starting of procurement, first appointment for 5.2. Colleagues and honorable members, the challenge that we always get when we engage with communities, they also want to benefit on all projects that we do in their area. So in this project, then there was a request that no, it must not only be for flood victims, there must also be houses built for the local people that need housing. Then that caused the project to be extended by 17 more houses, and then pushing the project as well to 9.2 million, which is now what it is. On slide 5, we are showing the families that were targeted as to where they come from. As you know, when you see TEA, it's a transitional emergency accommodation. The 20 houses were allocated as follows: 6 for families that are staying at Adams TEA, and 5 families that were staying at Ilfracombe TEA, and then 5 families that were at Oflati, and 1 family from Chekovara TEA, and then 1 family from Astra, and then 1 family from Bayside, what we call Lamontville. Chair and honorable members, if I may pause there a bit. This family, where it says Bayside, Lamontville, it's people that are in the TEA, but that are a result of 2025 floods at Umlazi, Lamontville. This is the family where the mother got washed away by the stream and she still has not been discovered. And they were staying in a TEA. However, the very last one, it says Bayside, Lamontville, due to the fact that a family member had washed away, and there are rituals that they wanted to do, which they cannot do in the rented flats. So when we were concluding these 20 houses, it was deemed appropriate that as much as they are the 2025 flood victims, not 2022, that we allocate them a house now so that they can then go to that house and then be able to do anything necessary for them associated with the fact that they have a family member that has departed. Then the balance from 20 to 37 at 17, it's the local beneficiaries. Slide 6, challenges. When we started the project, as I said, that this is in the middle of an existing township. We always have a challenge with invasion and illegal occupation, and here we had that as well. We then had to do some subdivisions to still achieve the 37 that we wanted to do. Then as a norm, actually maybe not a norm, but which is frequently happening, we had the contractor being stopped, either by extortionists or whatever, but we had stoppages on site. And also other people that were stopping the contractor are people that had illegally bought government sites, thinking that those sites are theirs. So when government started to build on those sites, then they discovered that actually they were scammed. So that caused challenges on site, which are unavoidable in this context. Current challenges, we are reporting, which is on slide 7, that the 25 houses have been completed. We are just dealing with what we call snags now, the minor defects that need to be concluded so that full occupation can be achieved. And then also the municipality connecting with electricity and opening the meter accounts. And then also, Chair, the challenge we have is that the risk of invasion is still there. Now, not on the sites, on the houses, if they stay completed but not occupied, even if it means over a weekend. there's someone that takes a chance or wants to jump in even at that period. That is the situation. On slide 8, it's just the pictures on the progress. And then on 9, it's just the pictures on the progress. In concluding this presentation, Chair, when you get there, you will find houses that are standing almost complete, some of them occupied. And as stated in this report, in our view, there are 3 questions that you can check to verify everyone that is there is coming from a TEA, meaning you can say, which TEA were you staying at before you moved into this house? And then the second question is that everyone who was in a TEA was in a community hall or in a church during floods. So they are now like in step number 3 in terms of being upgraded. So you can say, where did the floods hit you? Which church or community hall did you move to? And then which TEA did you move to? And now that you are in the house. So that is the status with regard to the 20 families that are located in Illovo. Community members, which is the 17 OSS, as I said, 25 of those houses are also practically complete, and then families will be coming in as we and take occupation, the ones that have been identified. Thank you, Chair. You had suggested that I will move straight to Montclair Lodge. After this, and with your indulgence, I will then request if I may proceed to Montclair Lodge. Okay. Honorable members, Montclair Lodge is a former Transnet property. What you see on that slide, it's now say that it's in Montclair in Ward 64. The report is written as the refurbishment project. I think hence the inquiry from the chair with regard to public works. Now it's an official government project. That's why it's got a K number. However, we are showing members the necessary details highlighting that the project owner is not KZN Human Settlements. It's not eThekwini Metro. It is the Housing Development Agency. That's why we have our colleagues from HDA that are here with us because they are the owners of the project, and also stating that at this stage now we are just about to conclude the BOQs. On slide 2, which is the background, I will also, as I did on the first one, honorable members, you will recall that when we had floods in April 2022, we received money, I think about 325 million or so, which was called emergency housing response, money to be used to respond to emergency housing. Most of that money, because it was money responding to disaster, we were not allowed to build permanent houses with it. What it was for us to buy what is called TRUs, those small temporary houses that are erected in about 4 days, to get building materials to the flood victims, and lastly, to then get the TEAs. What we then requested, which was, I think, first time in this instance, we realized that renting flats, which is what called TEAs, is not sustainable. We then made a request through Treasury that part of the money, we want to have what we will call a permanent TEA. Others call it a government-owned TEA. The plan, honorable members, is that now or even in future, if there is a disaster in eThekwini, when this facility is operational, we do not need to go to private sector to accommodate victims. We have now a state-owned TEA. That is the vision as to how the project came about, to say, instead of renting all the times, let's have a facility that can be of our own, which we will use now and even in the future, because climate change is around. It confirms that there will always be people that will be homeless. The amount to purchase the facility was 33.6 million. It was purchased from Transnet. And Chair, the owner, as I stated, that the property was in the name of Housing Development Agency. HDA is an entity of the Department of Human Settlements. In this case, there are ordinary options. We could have bought the property, ask Metro to own it, or through Public Works, ask that they own it or ask HDA to own it. The other two parties were not amenable, and it was Housing Development Agency that was amenable to take ownership of the title. So the transfer was made to the Housing Development Agency, and therefore the property was bought in their name. However, it was a lodge, Chair. It was not a ready-made purpose, suit for purpose facility. It needs to be converted, hence this project. What we have there is about 268 rooms that accommodate about 400 to 450 beds. And when we were then starting to say, what are we going to do to repurpose this building? This is where then Public Works, KZN, came in to say, no, do not spend money to hire people that are going to go there and do structural assessments and do what we call BOQ. We will do that for you for free. I think this was in July 2025. That is the work, Chair, that they are doing. According to our reports, I think next week they are ready to hand over the BOQ and the conditional assessments and everything they've discovered on that site. The importance of that report from them, it tells us what is it that we are going to need in order to refurbish and to repurpose this building to the ideal purpose that we have stated. On slide 4, which is the next one, is just the sequence that has been followed as we were engaging with Public Works, number of meetings, and the engineering assessment report that has now been completed. Chair, on slide 5, as I said, that this was due today, and they are saying that they are requesting that next week they do a official handover of this report to the HOD. As I said, it's a report which says the building that we have bought in line with what you want to use it for. This is what we have discovered in it. Electricity is good or electricity is bad. Plumbing is good. Painting. These walls are important. Don't demolish them. When you repurpose, you can demolish these walls and so on. That is what structural engineers are going to do. The balance of the presentation, honorable members, is starting to speak on what we can do, which is actually slide 6. We are showing that we want to use that the refurbishment into phases. Identify what can be done now and what can be done later. Phase 1 is where we feel that there is minor adjustments that can be done and the property can then serve the purpose once those refurbishments have been done. Phase 2, it's long-term refurbishments that will need to be done before we then conclude that those can then be used. On slide 7, we're then highlighting those details, which also we will then refer to you when we get on site. What is part of phase 1 is the penthouse, it's the father's house, it's the laundry room, it's block A, block B, that we think can be retained or with minor adjustments and then be used immediately. But there's still going to be a reconfiguration that needs to be done on those. That's the concept for phase 1. And then also what we will be getting from Public Works are cost estimates, which is part of BOQ. How much are we going to need to conclude refurbishment for phase 1 post-acquisition? Phase 2 is on page 8. It's the committee room. It's the small snooker room. It's a gymnasium. We're already saying that, for example, the gymnasium can be converted into 15 new family units of about 30 square meters, snooker room to about 16 family units. Then there are many garages there. They can be repurposed to about 11 30 square meter units. And then the dining hall, which we want to keep part of it, and then also the administration block. Also part of phase 2 is the swimming pool. The view is that it won't be ideal to sustain the swimming pool, but possible just to fill it up, convert it into a combo court for safety reasons. Remember that the purpose of that building now, it will not have permanent residents. People will stay there if they've been affected by floods or anything, stay there for 3 months and leave. and then another group will come in depending on circumstances. So the risk of an operational swimming pool is there. So the idea is to repurpose it, still keep the common kitchen, but possibly reduce it, and also the other kitchen that is there. That's part of what we are proposing to do as part of program of phase 2 refurbishment. From slide 10 onwards, Chair, is the program from Public Works. How did they go about when they were doing BOQ? Basically, the results that they are presenting to the department next week, and also what is going to be needed to go forward. Chair, that's the gist of this presentation. One thing maybe I might highlight, sorry that I might have skipped it. If you can go to background, I think it's slide 2. There is an extraordinary time delay on the slide that says background. Chair, we made money available in 2023, but the property was transferred in May 2025, almost 2 years. This is the reason. The property we are buying was owned by an SOE, which is Transnet. Then it's got its own admin and all bureaucracy inside Transnet. That is part number 1. 2, the property unit of Transnet is not here in Durban. In KZN, I think we were dealing with people that are in PE. And 3, Transnet, due to their financial situation, they've declared that this is a non-core business. So they were not responsive on all issues as we wanted. That then took time. Secondly, honorable members, the SOEs before 1994 had exclusive rights on properties. What we discovered on this property is that the lodge that you are going to see was on the same property as the railway line. So now when you buy the lodge, the subdivision needs to happen so that you cut off the railway line. Otherwise, you take everything as one side. And then they were not willing to give us the railway line. We don't need the railway line. They are using it. So now, in between 2023 and 2025, there was then a fresh process, what we call subdivision application. People that approve the subdivision application is the metro through Spluma. But someone must then do the design, the layout, survey diagram, submit the application, wait for objection to see if everyone agrees that the buildings be separated from the site where there is a railway line. So that took more time. And then we could only proceed with the transfer of the property once the section that we need had been removed from the railway line, and hence the delay of about 2 years. But all in all, this is a government-owned TEA. The plan is to use it as such for now and for future disasters in response to climate change. However, it still needs to be repurposed so that it fits the objectives. That's all, Chair. I will then hand over to my colleagues in case there are any additional points they want to make before discussion. Covered eThekwini. All right, HDA. All right, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Molosi, for the presentation. Welcome, the Honorable Masigo. Thank you for joining us. We did receive your apology on the delay. Colleagues, we are now on discussions. And I'm going to invite the honorable members to field any questions so that we can have an engagement before we go to the site visits. I think I will be the last person to ask questions. Let me start with the honorable members.
Thanks, Chair. Let me start with the Illovo one. What I had asked in the briefing is what I'm going to ask now. we were told by the department that there would be plans to make better use of land going forward when we are doing developments. And the houses here for the Illovo one looks beautiful, but I don't think it was the best use of land. I think we could have got more out of the land if we did high-rise buildings so that we could accommodate more beneficiaries. On the beneficiaries, I know these are families that were affected by the storms, but how do you allocate your beneficiaries? What criteria? How do you say family A is more deserving over family B? Do you have a list? Because we've asked for a list previously in this committee, a full comprehensive list of all the families affected by specifically by the 22 floods throughout the province. And I'm asking this because when we go out as politicians well, not inverted commas, because we are politicians, and residents ask us, I've been waiting for 10 years. I was also affected by the floods. I still have not had a home, etc. So I'd like to know, how do you choose between family A and family B coming from the same area? Like, for example, where you say that you've got some families from Adams or even Oflati. Five families from Oflati. I've been to Oflati. How do you choose 5 families from Oflati? I'd like to know how you use that criteria in Illovo specifically, right? And then coming to Montclair, what did the department, sorry, not did the department do a conditional assessment before purchasing the property? And then if you could take us through the process of purchasing the property between yourselves, between the Department of Human Settlements and the Department of Public Works. The worry here now is that this building has been purchased, but clearly there's a lot of refurbishment that needs to be done. And Public Works, if I may, Chair, says that they did not receive any invite to today's meeting. The MEC says he's checked twice now and there was no invite, but he's more than happy to obviously bring his team here. But from my side, I'd like to know, how did the negotiations or discussions, the process unfold between the Department of Human Settlements and Department of Public Works in terms of purchasing this property and negotiating the way forward with regards to the refurbishment of this particular property? And then was there any public consultation or public meetings in getting the buy-in from the residents? And it's not a story of not in my backyard. The residents of Montclair are not saying that. What they are saying in Montclair, and from engaging with the residents from Montclair, is that they are worried that firstly, people from Montclair who need housing are not being housed in the lodge. People that were affected by the flood. So it's not people that do not have houses. People that were affected by the floods are not being housed here. Again, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. Secondly, the kids, where are they going to be schooled? Which schools are they going to attend? If they're going to continue attending schools that they are currently in, we know there's a problem with scholar transport at the moment. So how is that going to unfold? The actual infrastructure around this building, as far as I'm aware, there are a lot of sewer issues in that. Is that going to be fixed before? Is it part of the plan with the refurbishment? Because bringing more families in is going to exacerbate the issue or place an extra burden on the already burdened infrastructure in the area. There's a whole lot of issues that are coming from that particular community. I want to know, has there been any sort of public consultation or meetings or whatever it is, just to tell the residents what exactly is the plan, how you plan to unfold that plan in that area, where the residents are going to come from, or to go into the Montclair Lodge. Are they even aware? Because I was not aware that this is not going to be a permanent solution, that it's going to be what you like in 3 months and then 3 months and 3 months. So I don't think that the residents of that community are actually aware of that as well. And then, yeah, I think the main thing here is the budget and where the budget going to come from, how is it going to get utilized and implemented. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you to the Chair and thank you to the department. The HOD. I have a similar question, so I'm not going to wax lyrical, but it's on how beneficiaries are identified to occupy the units. So the beneficiaries coming from the transitional emergency accommodation, I see that one was taken from, like Chatsworth, one is taken from another area, then there's 5 taken from another area. In terms of your allocation breakdown, how is that determined? Because I think the number one issue that we come across on the ground is that people are concerned that there's a lack of transparency in terms of allocation of permanent housing, and that you have to know people in the department to get accommodation, or you have to pay a bribe, for example. So there are quite numerous allegations, and I'd like to know what steps the department is taking to ensure that there is a sense of fairness, transparency when it comes to allocation of housing. And we've advocated obviously for a transparent housing list, but when it comes to these flood victims, I think it's really important that people understand how the housing is being allocated. And then also, again, my colleague, the Honorable Gokul, has mentioned the high-rise structures. If we have such a massive backlog in terms of housing flood victims, again, why did we not make sure that we embarked on a project where you could accommodate the most amount of people in a high-rise structure, as opposed to, a single platform structure? I just think that that would have been wise given the scarcity of land as well. Thank you.
Chairperson, and good morning to your good self. Apologies once again for arriving late. On a lighter note, Chairperson, I used to have a friend who always arrived late in meetings, but the minute they would step in the meeting, their hand would be up to ask questions. So I think today I feel like her because I arrived towards the end of the presentation. But Chair, I think firstly, in welcoming the presentations, and I should be forgiven if this matter has been addressed by the presentation. I just have this constant concern around the risk of, and I think, and I support that we should be creating the most comfortable environment for South Africans, especially those that are most vulnerable. But in turn, when we create such, there's a risk that we run of communities becoming comfortable, especially, if you are coming from a situation where you had built a shack which is comfortable enough for you, no kitchen, no nothing, and you were reduced to that, and suddenly you'll have, water flushing it away. You are then taken to an environment where you become very, very comfortable. And also, Chairperson, there is that risk as well of, and I know that the department has addressed it, of members who some are undocumented at that time, and they really, to some extent, wouldn't qualify to receive that type of an environment. So what is it? Do we have anything in mind as a risk mitigation strategy where we will be able to address those who no longer want to be taken away from such an environment? Mhlambe munye would say ukuthi maybe mina I'm more comfortable in Montclair, having moved from another area. Sengiyathanda ukuhlala la, ngisafuna ukuyohlala la nengisakhona, because history has taught us, Chairperson, that it does happen where some of the beneficiaries are comfortable where they are staying. They get schools around, they get, some of them even get work around that area. So mase kufanele ukuthi abahambe sekuyinkinga. How are we going to address that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko. In fact, we're having that discussion before the meeting started. So it was an informal discussion that with the Montclair project, and one is not being pessimistic, but one observation is that the department will surely struggle to remove the people who would have been temporarily placed in Montclair. I don't know, maybe the department has creatively drafted a method of how they are going to deal with that. The one question, I think colleagues have covered really most of the questions. The one question that I have, Ngolos, and colleagues, we have a challenge almost everywhere around people who illegally occupy the units. There's those that invade the properties. And I think you have highlighted that there's that current risk in the Illovo project. I mean, one would want to establish if the department has a risk plan of how they are going to handle that, should it happen, or rather, what can be done to prevent it from happening. I think that should be the question. And I want to echo the Honorable Gokul's question earlier on, which I'd actually noted it down. I wanted to check that now that the department and public works and the agency are looking at refurbishing the property, Montclair, I think the question would be, when the decision to purchase the property was taken, what was the value of the property, and how did you guys arrive at that value of the property? Upon taking that decision to purchase the property, was there consideration of what would be the cost of fixing the property? I mean, I think it should go without saying that anyone in this room who goes to buy a house that has issues, would want to understand what would be the cost of fixing that house before placing a value and buying that property. I think that's just basic logic. That if you go and you want to buy a house and you see that the house has cracked walls, before purchasing the price at whatever cost, you would want to first establish the value of the property and then discount that value of the property by the cost that you are going to incur refurbishing the property. I think that's naturally what anyone in this house would do. So for us to arrive at a value of 33 million of purchasing the building, what would have been the assessment done to accommodate the value less the construction cost of refurbishments, taking that into account and then placing a purchase price on it? Because what we see now is that it's only now that the assessment is being done. So we want to understand essentially the value for money on the property. So if we could have specific amounts in response to that question, that would be much appreciated. You can share amongst yourself, colleagues, in terms of responding to the questions that were fielded by the honorable members. Thank you.
I'll start again, and then members, colleagues from HDA and eThekwini, and from our provincial department will also add maybe if there are any other points I might have missed or certain emphasis. The first one, to us, it's about densification, honorable member. Why are you building one house, one plot when there's such scarcity of land instead of maybe 3 stories and condense a bit because land is scarce, which is the question is to do with Illovo. I think it's a very fair question. We do wish that we were able to achieve that. The response is as follows. Illovo as a township was created around in the late 90s. So the property is already rezoned as such. It's already rezoned as the zoning, I think members, it says this is what you can do and what you cannot do. There's general residential, there's residential 1 and all those categories. So in terms of the zoning, it's already zoned for a standalone house because that is how the township of Illovo is, because we are building in an old township. Yes, there's an option of then changing it, but if you change it, you must then do a rezoning application. You don't just say, no, there is space. I can put a double story here because there is space. You must then do a rezoning. Then you know what the rezoning triggers. It's a new EIA, it's a new SPLOMA. And then remember, we had flood victims that needed to be housed. That is part number one. Part number two, even if you achieve the rezoning, the infrastructure that is on the ground was put according to the zone that was there at the time. So one challenge that you're going to have is that if you change the land use, then the municipality is going to say, no, but this infrastructure was not designed for this volume. And on that calculation, it was better to say, we built on the existing sites as they are, avoiding the cost of rezoning, the time of rezoning, and also the associated issue with additional infrastructure in case you want to go, want to densify. But as a principle, it is ideal that wherever we find land, we densify, we put as many people as possible. Here, this was the reason why it was not an easy option to densify. Second point about beneficiaries. Then on this one, honorable members, to me, it's if you go to that slide, it's slide number, is it slide number 2? Yes, on the sorry, it's slide number the one on Illovo that is showing the TEAs that are going to be decanted. We built at Illovo and with the idea of closing TEAs. So one of the criteria is to identify TEAs that you can easily close. Because remember, we are paying rent to these places. So for example, Ifracombe has closed now. We are no longer paying rent. But it's not only that, the standard government criteria that people that need to come forward and apply to be assisted. Maybe let me take members a little bit back. We had floods. We had people going to community halls and churches, no separation, even foreign nationals. We then had people going to TEAs, still no separation. Then when they were in TEAs, then we said everyone must come forward and put a housing application so that the means test can be done. Do you qualify for a house? What is the family income level? Are you South African? Everything that is needed in order for anyone to get a house. As we stand now, we have about 1,069 people that are in families that are in TAs that have applied and been approved to get a house. Now the criteria here is that, okay, let's go for TAs that we want to close so that we no longer pay rent. That is largely the criteria that was used. 2, you also look at the location of the project and the area where people were affected. In this case, because it's in the south, flood victims that were affected in the south, wherever they lived, and moved to TEAs in the south, it's easier. Because if you take someone, for example, that was got washed away in the north, and then you allocate them in the south, they're gonna say, no, but my livelihoods are in Reservoir Hills. It doesn't help to get a house at Illovo. That's the criteria that we use mainly for people that have been screened, approved, you qualify for a house. 1, is this helping us to close the TEA? 2, where is this project? And so that we can be as proximal as possible. That's the criteria. Then there will also be, then in instances, for example, where it's 1 or 2 families level of desperation as to who is ready to get out and then be willing to get a house there. But it's a small number. We are talking about 20 houses in the population of 1,069 families that have been approved, applied for, who stay in TAs, they've applied, they are ready to get a house if it's available. However, that project, that is what it yields. 37, and then in the 37, community insists that 17 houses are for them. I think I've shared this with the members. We are building 37 houses, but only 20 are for flood victims. 17 are for qualifying community members in Illovo. The ward councillor and community structures can maybe elaborate on that. Everyone, all 37 are going to get, but that's how we ended up with that situation. Now, coming to Montclair Lodge, let me emphasize again, maybe to members, that the idea here is to have a government-owned TEA so that we don't pay rent every time there is a family that is destitute, that has been affected by any form of disaster. Whilst it responds to 2022, but it's also responding to climate change, that once we have the facility running and then a family has been affected anywhere in the, I'll say, in the south of Durban, and they don't have shelter, we will call this facility and then say, can you give us units, 3 units for 4 families or whatever? Then they will be coming. That is the plan. That is what we asked for. However, as I said at the start, that we only had received 325 million for emergency housing, to build TRUs, to give building materials, and to respond to the disaster of April 2022. We then requested that we can't just use all this money to private sector, meaning we pay rent to private sector and rent. Can we get part of it for something that will be permanent? That is how it came about. Then let me deal with the what we call this the pre-acquisition studies. Pre-acquisition studies were done. HDA, Mr. Lushaba, I think during the time of his predecessor, they've got a standard procedure. If you want to buy property, you get the valuer and so on. That was done. And the matter until it went to the board of HDA for them to say, yes, let's go ahead, let's acquire. But also pre-acquisition studies, it's not only the valuation part, it's also the conditional assessment at that time to say, is the structure valuable? Ordinarily, what HDA does, they still can recommend that you can buy, but buy only on the value of the land, not the building. The building is not worth anything. Or maybe they sometimes recommend that don't buy even the land and everything. It's not ideal. In this case, the conclusion was that no, it's feasible. That feasibility study can be made available to the members to say it was concluded that no, it's feasible. We can then proceed. Lastly, on the pre-acquisition studies, honorable members, actually the example that Honorable Chair you've raised, you can do assessment in terms of what is on the ground, but an assessment in terms of what you intend to do lies with the purchaser, because you want to change what is on the ground, and which is, in this case, we're saying it's already a lodge. With minor conversion, can we achieve this? The answer was yes. I will then get the values as we bought it for 33.7 million. What did the valuation say? I still have a feeling that it was around that, but we can make available that to members. The negotiations at acquisition, honorable members, Public Works was not involved. As I said, so is eThekwini, because they were not the acquiring party. They were not even interested. Public Works, KZN, only got involved in July 2025, after the property had been transferred to the HDA in May 2025. When we went to Cabinet to say the property has been transferred, we are now repurposing it. And then Public Works volunteered to say, do not buy the exercise of doing conditional assessment. We have internal capacity to do it for you, human settlements. And this is the report that they will be giving us next week to say, this is what we have found, this is what we can do, and so on. They have been giving us, I'll say, installments of reports since they started, as we are getting a final one next week. But that's only at that time that they came. And our expectation is that once they have done that, they will not be continuing. They've not volunteered for any additional work other than to do a conditional assessment, which they said, please do not outsource it. We will do it for free. Point about kids, I think it clarifies. This is not a permanent accommodation. So the point about kids, exactly like that, we are not making a new township or anything that says someone is going to stay permanently. As a result, we can't even predict that people that will be staying here, where will they be coming from? Because we can't predict who is going to be homeless when the first. It's like a hospital. That's what we said when we're negotiating with the community members of that area. Maybe let me get straight to that point. To say we've met community members from the inception. And in the last, I will say, from April onwards, personally, I'm meeting them. They are in different forms, if you are familiar with that community, but I think it's to do with the politics on the ground. That being the case, I meet all of them, and I give all of them government information. Number one, we are sharing with them that this project is in your ward, but it's not a community project. Let us just be clear on that. I even give them an example that where Moses Mabhida Stadium exists, it's in a ward. But the people that go there are not people from that ward. It's anyone in KZN who is interested and affected. And this facility that we are refurbishing in Montclair Lodge is exactly going to serve that purpose. We also have Albert Luthuli Hospital not far from there. It's not for the community of that area. But where I said they will come in unavoidably is that if there is refurbishment, in terms of construction, there are rules that local resources must be made to local people, be that CPG rules for grass cutting on a continuous basis. But in terms of the use of the facility, in other words, I emphasize, we are not building a government-owned TEA for people of Montclair to stay in there. No, it's anyone that is homeless, whom government will screen and then say you deserve to be accommodated, then we have a facility. I've shared this with them. They are starting to understand it. Actually, my last meeting with them, Chair, they are now preparing a business plan that says now that this facility is coming into their area, them as community members, what can they do to enhance it and to benefit from it? That's my assignment with them. They are working on that. In no time, they will be coming back with that proposal. Ordinarily, what it will entail, it's exactly what I've mentioned. That all work that can be sourced locally in the ward, they will then be doing that during refurbishment and post refurbishment. For anything where they can still participate, they will need to be coming. But it's not a project for that specific ward. I have shared it, and we are giving them as much information as possible. The risk of for those who will come in there and not want to leave, I think it's there, honourable members. It's there. I'm saying this because we now have an example. The flood victims we are talking about were staying in community halls and churches. We have put them into flats. Then you've seen the protests when we were asking them to leave. So it does look like we find good facilities that make people want to stay forever in them, even when it's time to leave. So that risk is still there. How are we mitigating it? As we did with the facilities, there's still going to be an occupation agreement when you come in, which says this is not a permanent facility. You are here because you were affected by this there. You are here for this long, and then at this time you will also move out. We are also, honorable members, trying to make it to be not too comfortable. But I'm sure that is relative. For example, all units there you will see when you get are very small. Even what is a family unit, it will be at 30 square meters. I agree that at arrival, everyone will stay, but after some time, people will say, no, I can't stay on this forever. We take that because they will not be too comfortable, possible, then they will then want to leave. Mitigating invasion, we have had a series of invasions on this property. One is the result of what I've just shared with you, that I have now told all local members that if you've got issues with this facility, talk to me. I'm willing to explain. In about June, another, because I can't remember if these details are still correct, there was some kind of a vacancy in the ward, and people were mobilizing around this facility politically. And they also then came here, we explained, it seems to be under control now, because those colleagues and those committee members, we are sharing with them that this is the plan and this is how you can then come in. So the risk of invasion is still there. We have 24/7 security guards paid for by the HDA to guard the property, and we also have activated our anti-land invasion unit as backup in case maybe there is an invasion at any given time. Invaders are not going to wait for the property to be refurbished. Some of them wanted to invade right now. And then they're saying, if Transnet people were able to stay here, I can stay too. I don't need to wait anything. So they've asked them to leave. They've left, but the risk is still there. And we have security guards on the ground. And then we are speaking to community members to understand what we intend doing so that there is no loss. Maybe from my side, Chair, I think that is it. We will give the committee the pre-acquisition studies, which entail the valuation report prior to acquisition and the conditional assessment that may have been done at that time. But in terms of final decision, as stated, maybe again to clarify to members, this went to the HDA board because it's the HDA that is the owner of the title. It's not Public Works. I'm addressing this because I often notice that confusion from many members, that the moment you see a property and the state involved, it triggers Public Works. To say this one is unique, it's the Housing Development Agency. Let's just know that. So there is that clarity. I'm not sure, colleagues, if there's any addition from your side.
Thank you, Mphathi. No, Chair, Honorable Chair, Campbell is to make additions for issue Montclair. Is to separate my roles. Currently, Public Works roles at Montclair is to conduct a structural assessment, develop a design. The reason why they need to develop design because currently, when we go to the municipality, there were not designs submitted for this purpose. But Public Works was requested to do as-built drawings and conduct electrical assessment and develop a BOQ because the BOQ is the key in this project. So that eThekwini will be in the position to appoint a contractor. The role of Public Works will continue for phase 2 and phase 3 because it's where we need to redesign and repurpose some of the areas within the same building at Montclair. Two chairs to highlight eThekwini in terms of a budget will be responsible for a refurbishment of Montclair because there will be a developer where they will appoint a contractor. And then to Chair, in terms of the operation cost, eThekwini is responsible to provide operation cost for that property for HDA to be able to manage the whole building, Chairperson. To the issues around the sewer and water in the area. Our assessment, Chairperson, determine what eThekwini they need to go and repair the sewer reticulation in the same building together with the water and electricity, Chairperson. Lastly, Chair, in terms of invasion to Illovo. Currently, Chair, yesterday night we received the information that there was a potential invasion where we've engaged our risk management, where they reported the matter to the police, and internally they requested our security to go and monitor a situation of Chairperson. We anticipate we'll engage with council so that we'll be able to move our beneficiary because there are 10 units that are unoccupied because there were a little bit of snag that need to be addressed, and they say when they need to provide electricity in those unit, Chairperson. But there was an invasion, a potential invasion to the area of Illovo for 10 unit, Chairperson. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. I think it's a matter that the HDA document. I know Ngolosi have tried to a number of issues are pointing in their direction. There are no allegations, but there are a lot of comments around the Montclair project. And I know Babshanga has also come in constructively. But if maybe the colleagues from the HDA can comment on the Montclair project.
Thank you, Chair. As Mr. Pengo have commented to cover some of the things, maybe Chair, where you ask about the assessment and the evaluations. So the assessment was done and our valuation team, they went on site to do the valuation of the property. They've done that, even our land and legally, they went to check all those things. So the reports, they have it on their disposal. So if it's needed, it can be provided. So as Mr. Pengu covered, there are people on the site now who are looking after the property, the security and everyone. So at this point, the building is secure and it's safe. Thank you.
While the mic is still with you, do you have an estimate of what your colleagues the property to be?
When they do the assessment, it was the land team who was doing that. Then the value was, so I was not involved during that time. So maybe, but if it's requested, I can pass the message, then it can be maybe submitted to Mr. Pengu. Then Mr. Pengu can share with everyone who's present here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, we are covered. I think it's fair to request then, based on the discussions, Babu Pengu, that in the next portfolio, if you could furnish us with that report that we keep on referring to, it would be much appreciated. I think that's the only resolution that one would recommend. Honorable members, in the absence of any other questions, I think that would now bring us to the end of this particular session. I do note that there is lunch that is prepared for a few minutes, and then we depart for the site visits. I would then request Mr. Mdluli to give us sort of an itinerary or a route and how we are going to go about from here to avoid any form of confusion. Where to from here, who is leading the process, locations and whatnot. And also to request on a lighter note that on en route, can we drive and be mindful that we do not all drive at the same speed. I've noted on several occasions that we have speedsters that want to arrive there in 5 minutes. Then we have members that get lost on the way there because they're driving responsibly. So if we can just be mindful of that as we go towards the two sites. But I'll give Mr. Mdluli to give us a bite on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I was through I was going to ask through you, Honorable Chairperson, that the officials from the department, as far as the leading of the way is concerned, that we get an indication as to who we want to follow. But we are going to start with Illovo and then go on to Montclair. If there could be an indication from the official in the department to ban simlandela chairperson passed it through you. But the idea is first Illovo and then Montclair. Bengithi asangizama sihlala qabe ngithi babungcolosi mhlambe ku-staff sakho khona ungasigayida lana ngokulandelana but sinayo i-location that's been sent to us kodwa it will be more coordinated if like kungaba khona someone from the department isilandela yena-ke but befuna ukuqala Illovo sigcine Montclair.
Winston Chair will lead the delegation to, I think we'll start Illovo and then we move to Montclair.
Good morning, Honorable Chairs. I've got a VW Tiguan, so I will wait outside the building, outside the parking for everybody. A silver grey VW Tiguan. ND 498039. Thank you.
All right, colleagues, the meeting is then adjourned. Please do have lunch for a few minutes and then we will leave for the site visits. Thank you.
There's no risk. Right.